Your wife isn't dead." Adrian Cole went rigid. The voice drifted from behind, soft and high, yet sharp enough to cut straight through the drizzle that blurred the memorial garden. Slowly, he pivoted. A thin black girl stood just outside the circle of mourners, hoodie soaked and clinging to her frame. She looked maybe 12, 13 at most. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, oddly calm. "What did you say?" Adrian asked, voice tight. "I saw her," the girl repeated. "Your wife. She's alive." One of his aides snorted. "We should get Mr. Cole out of the rain." "Quiet," Adrian snapped without looking back. The girl stepped closer. "I was there when she came out of the ocean," she insisted. "She was hurt, terrified. They threw her into a van." Adrian's jaw hardened. "Kid, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but my wife was lost in a storm off the coast. No one made it out." "We searched for months," he added, the words tasting like rust. "She lived," the girl said flatly. "I remember her." Adrian folded his arms. "And what makes you so certain it was my wife?" "She had a scar," the girl replied. "Long one on her left forearm." She dragged a finger from elbow to wrist. "And her hair was short, really light blonde," she continued. "She kept screaming your name." Adrian's heart lurched so violently he nearly lost his footing. Lena had gotten that scar in grad school, crashing through a greenhouse window during a protest. She hated discussing it. After chemo, she'd worn her pale hair cropped, fierce, and unapologetic. Still, Adrian shook his head. "That's impossible." "No, it's not," the girl shot back. "They wouldn't let her go. This man, he had a fake arm, plastic-looking. He was in charge, told them to drag her." Adrian's breath stalled. "Describe him." "White, tall, gray beard, long coat," she said. "Barked orders like some retired commander. He told them, 'Move her before anyone spots us.'" Her voice trembled now, from urgency rather than fear. "She saw me," the girl whispered. "Your wife looked straight at me. Her eyes were terrified, but there was something else, like she knew I could help if I tried." Rain and tears blurred Adrian's vision. Part of him wanted to rage at this child, to demand she stop torturing him with hope. But a quieter part, the one he'd buried beneath grief and routine, leaned closer. "She wore a necklace," the girl went on, softer. "Gold chain with a small heart. 2 letters on it, L and A." Adrian's world tilted sideways. He'd never mentioned that charm publicly. No one had. The pendant was a custom 10th anniversary gift, inscribed with Lena's initials and his. She never took it off. If that detail made your chest tighten too, you're not alone. What would you do if someone you loved might still be out there? Like this video if it stirred something in you. Drop a comment with where you're watching from, and hit subscribe so you never miss a story that grabs you by the soul. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a small handkerchief, sky blue, rain-heavy, edged in delicate lace and fraying threads. A single word, stitched in fading gold thread, was still visible. Lena. Adrian stepped forward as if drawn by a wire. "Where did you get this?" he asked hoarsely. "Behind the old cannery," she replied. "They stopped the van there. I watched from behind the fence." Wind rushed across the marble path, scattering petals from the wreath he'd laid. The world narrowed. Mourners, umbrellas, assistants all dissolved into gray mist. Only the girl and the handkerchief remained. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Naya," she answered. "Why tell me now, Naya?" She swallowed. "Because nobody else cared. I tried. I told a cop once. He laughed, said to quit making things up, but I didn't imagine it. I saw everything. Adrian studied her face. Her gaze was too clear, her words too specific. No hint of rehearsed drama, just wounded certainty. Behind him, an aide muttered, "Sir, the press is starting to move closer." Adrian ignored him. He stared at the handkerchief, the name glinting faintly in the dim light. Memories crashed into him. Lena grinning on the yacht, reading on stormy mornings, pulling long sleeves over that old scar when summer came. "You're serious," he whispered. "Dead serious," Nia replied. Adrian turned to his aide. "Bring the car around." "Sir, now." When the black sedan rolled up, Adrian opened the door and motioned for Nia to get in. Are you sure?" she asked, startled. "If what you're saying is even partly true," Adrian said, "I need your help to get her back." Nia climbed into the car. As the sedan pulled away from the memorial, far behind them, a man in a gray raincoat lowered a pair of binoculars, expression unreadable. He tapped a small device hidden in his pocket. "Contact made," he murmured into a concealed earpiece. "Initiate Phase 2. In the back seat, the air was warm, thick with leather and silence. Adrian sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, the handkerchief clenched in his fist. Across from him, Nia watched raindrops form crooked rivers down the window. They rode that way for several blocks, quiet, tense. At last, Adrian spoke. "Nia, where exactly did you see them take her?" "Down by the docks," she replied, still looking out. "Behind the old cannery at Pier 14. There's a chain-link fence with a hole in it. I hide there sometimes when it's bad outside." Adrian leaned back, mind racing through timelines he'd forced himself to abandon. "This man with the artificial arm, you're certain?" "Positive," she said. His left arm clicked when he moved. It was white, like molded plastic, not metal. Looked like some experimental model. Adrian's pulse spiked. The contract supposedly died in prototype phase. Apparently not. "You said she looked scared," Adrian prompted. "She was begging," Nia answered, finally meeting his gaze. "Not screaming loud, more like pleading. She tried to run. That's when they grabbed her, dragged her. The guy with the fake arm gave the order." "No one else saw?" Adrian asked. Nia's jaw tightened. "People don't really see girls like me," she said quietly. "Especially not a black kid sleeping behind dumpsters." The blunt honesty hit Adrian harder than any headline. He'd ruled this city from skyscrapers and boardrooms, never realizing how invisible some lives remained. Lives that had witnessed the night his world sank. "Why wait a year to come to me?" he asked. "I didn't know who you were," she admitted. "Not until I saw your picture in a magazine at the library. The article said you'd be speaking at the memorial today. That's when I knew it was you." Adrian rubbed his temples, exhaustion buzzing behind his eyes. Rain drummed softly on the roof like impatient fingers. He glanced at Nia again, sneakers still wet, hands clasped, shoulders squared with stubborn resolve. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked. She shook her head. "Then you'll stay at my place," he decided. "At least until this is sorted." Nia frowned. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Adrian said. "You brought me something no one else could." "Doubt." He turned toward the driver. "Take us home." As the SUV wound out of the city and into the hills, Adrian dialed a number from muscle memory. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. "Cole, you said you were done." "I was," Adrian said, "until 10 minutes ago." He stared out at the dark coastline. "I need eyes on Pier 14. The cannery in a 5-block radius. Look for containment signs, medical gear, private security, anyone with a prosthetic left arm. A low whistle. What did you dig up? Something I buried a year ago, Adrian muttered. And it's clawing its way back. He hung up and turned to Naya. We'll start with your story, he said. I want every detail. Nothing is too small. Nia hesitated. Do you believe me now? I believe enough to send people into the dark, Adrian replied. And that's not something I do lightly. By the time they reached the estate, a glass and stone fortress perched on the cliffs, Naya's eyes were wide. She'd never seen a driveway that long, lined with manicured hedges and quiet security cameras. The salt air here felt different from the harbor's, cleaner, sharper, filtered through wrought iron gates that probably cost more than any shelter roof. A housekeeper opened the front door before they reached it. Mr. Cole, shall I? She's with me, Adrian said, nodding toward Naya. Find her something warm to change into and bring hot food. Of course, sir. Inside, the house glowed with understated luxury. Dark walnut floors, soft lighting, old jazz humming invisibly from speakers. Nia's shoes squeaked against the polished wood. Adrian led her to a den and handed her a thick blanket, settling her near the fireplace. She stayed silent as the flames caught, shoulders slowly untensing. Dinner arrived quickly. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, apple slices arranged like a photograph. Nia stared at the plate as if it might vanish. I haven't had food like this in a long time, she murmured, almost embarrassed. Adrian sat opposite, watching her take small, careful bites, as if testing whether the moment was real. What about school? He asked. I go sometimes, she said, when the shelters push us to. What if I told you? He began, leaning forward thoughtfully. If what you saw helps me find Lena, I'll make sure you never sleep under a pier again. Nia paused mid-bite, studying him. You'd really do that? I don't promise things I can't keep, Adrian replied. She nodded slowly. Then I'll tell you everything. And she did, unraveling the night like a thread she'd never stopped gripping. She described the van pulling up, the men in dark clothes loading Lena, the one who dropped a small box. Some strange device Nia had secretly pocketed. Adrian listened without interrupting, absorbing every gesture, every sidelong glance. Later, when Nia finally drifted to sleep on the leather couch, wrapped in blankets, Adrian retreated to his office. The house lay quiet, lit only by desk lamps and screen glow. Adrian sat with the strange box on the table, phone pressed to his ear. We've got movement, the same gravelly voice, Rafe's reported. Unmarked vehicles at the cannery. Armed men, no insignia. One matches your mechanical arm description. Adrian's grip tightened. Do not engage. Track them. I want destinations, contacts, everything. Got it, Rafe said. When the call ended, Adrian stared through the glass wall at Naya's sleeping form. She hadn't lied. He could feel the truth like a splinter under his skin. Something had pulled Lena from the sea and stashed her away in the shadows. And that truth had walked into his home wearing a damp hoodie. The storm wasn't approaching. It had already arrived. He'd just been pretending not to hear it. Morning broke pale and unsure, smearing gray light over the Cole estate. Adrian hadn't slept. He'd spent the night hunched over maps of the harbor, blueprints of the cannery, and archived security footage he'd paid to sift for anomalies. None had shown Lena. But now, Naya's account rewrote those empty frames into possibilities. In the dining room, Naya perched at the edge of a tall chair, eating scrambled eggs and toast as if both might disappear. A clean hoodie hung from her shoulders, fabric smelling faintly of detergent. In daylight, she seemed smaller, but her eyes remained unwavering. Adrian entered with a mug of coffee. "Sleep okay?" he asked. Naya nodded. "That couch is softer than any bed I've had." He allowed himself a small smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Good, because today I need your help." She tensed. "You want me to go with you?" "Yes," he said. "I need you to show me everything. Every spot you were that night, every corner, every hiding place. Your memory beats any satellite." Nia swallowed. "If they're still there?" "They won't see us," Adrian replied. "We'll be careful." An hour later, they rolled through fog-soaked streets in Adrian's black SUV, windows tinted so dark they reflected the city back at itself. Naya guided them with quick, precise directions, pointing from the back seat. "Turn here, past those warehouses, behind that fence." They stopped across from the cannery, its rusted metal shell sagging under a giant faded sign, "Atlantic Fisheries." It looked abandoned, shattered windows peeling paint. But Adrian had lived too long to trust broken glass as proof of emptiness. "Stay in the car," he told Naya. "Rafe is already inside." Seconds later, his earpiece crackled. "We've got one guard at the south exit," Rafe whispered. "Plain clothes but armed." Adrian glanced back at Naya. "You said they took her around the side?" "Left side," she confirmed. "Door under that busted light." He nodded, stepping into the chill air. Rafe met him at the corner, crouched low. "Place looks dead, except one sealed corridor," he said. "New padlock on an old door. I popped it." They slipped through a service entrance, the smell turning from salt and rust to something harsher, bleach, metal, an echo of hospital corridors. Adrian's skin prickled as they approached the locked room. Inside, the space was barely bigger than a small bedroom. A rusted cot sat in the center, metal restraints dangling from its corners. Nearby, a tray held an empty syringe, still capped. Adrian's blood ran cold. On the wall, scratched into the concrete near the bed, he spotted faint letters. Shaky but unmistakable. LC. "Lena Cole," Rafe murmured. "This isn't some stash spot, it's a cell." Adrian touched the letters with his fingertips. The edges felt fresh, maybe weeks old, not a year. Lena had been here recently. She'd carved proof she still existed, trusting someone would eventually come. "She knew I'd keep digging," he said quietly. "Or hoped I would." Rafe cleared his throat. "There's more." He held up a blood-stained scrap of navy silk, embroidered with silver threads. Adrian's throat tightened. "Part of her scarf," he whispered. Back in the SUV, Naya sat with her knees tucked up, watching the building anxiously. When Adrian climbed in, she searched his face. "You were right," he told her. A flicker of pride crossed her expression, quickly tempered by worry. "She was scared, wasn't she?" Nia asked. Adrian nodded. "Very." She looked down at her hands. "I don't get it. Why grab her? She's just some woman." "She's my wife," Adrian said softly. "And when people can't control a man, they go after the person he loves most." Nia didn't answer, but her fingers tightened around the hem of her hoodie. Adrian pulled out his phone. "I need to call someone," he said. "Stay here. Doors stay locked. Rafe's nearby." He stepped out and dialed a number. On the second ring, a man answered, voice smooth and annoyed. "Cole, been a year. This better be good." "Glenwood," Adrian said. "I've got questions about Lena, about the insurance payout, about missing paperwork." "You need rest, Adrian," Glenwood said. "Grief. Save it," Adrian cut in. "Tell me this. do you know a guy with a prosthetic arm who used to do off-the-books transport security? Silence. You're chasing ghosts, Glenwood finally muttered. No, Adrian replied. I'm following tracks. He hung up and slid back into the SUV. Naya watched him carefully. They're nervous, he said. That's good. Scared people are dangerous, she whispered. So is the truth, Adrian replied. As they drove away from the cannery, storm clouds thickened over the water. Somewhere nearby, in a place they hadn't yet found, a woman whispered into the dark, "Hold on, Adrian." Naya sat cross-legged on the couch in Adrian's study that night, the fire throwing restless shadows across her face. The silence felt heavy, broken only by the tick of an antique clock. For the first time in months she drew, pencil skimming over fine sketch paper Adrian had given her. She outlined a woman's face. Short hair, haunted eyes. You've drawn her before, Adrian said from behind his desk. Nia didn't glance up. Only in my head, she said. When I couldn't sleep, I'd picture her so I wouldn't forget. Adrian leaned forward. Why? Because she looked like she needed someone to remember, Nia replied. Like if everybody forgot, she'd just disappear. Adrian's chest tightened. The markets had recovered. The news cycle had moved on. But this girl who owned almost nothing had guarded Lena's memory like something sacred. Come with me tomorrow, he said. Nia looked up. Where? To see someone from Harbor Patrol. He owes me favors. Maybe he remembers something weird from that night. Okay, Nia said. Adrian hesitated, choosing his next words carefully. If anything happens, if I'm not around, you run. Don't freeze. Run and call the number I gave you. Understand? Nia studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'm not scared. You should be, he murmured under his breath, not quite meaning her. Later, after the house had gone still, Adrian picked up the sketch Nia left on the coffee table. Under the lamplight, Lena's face stared back, no color but unmistakable, every angle, every shadow. Only now her eyes didn't just show fear, they pleaded. Help me, Adrian whispered. The next morning dawned clear, but cold as steel. They drove to a marina on the town's edge, where patrol boats bobbed beside worn docks. Adrian led Nia down a narrow slip to a power boat where an older man in a frayed denim jacket smoked a cigar. Cole, he greeted, voice rough with salt and years. Harlan, Adrian said, extending a hand. Appreciate you coming. Harlan's gaze flicked to Nia, assessing. That your kid? She's a witness, Adrian said. The older man exhaled smoke. You said this was about Lena. Thought you'd put that storm in the ground. I did, Adrian replied. But it didn't stay buried. Harlan's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Adrian nodded toward Nia. She stepped forward, posture straight. I saw them pull her from the water, Nia said. I watched where they took her. Harlan stared, stunned but not dismissive. That night we got a distress ping, he admitted finally. Unregistered signal, off the usual lanes. We logged it. Then some Homeland suit called, said it was a drill, told us delete everything. Where? Adrian asked sharply. Harlan stepped into the boat's small cabin, rummaged through a drawer, then returned with a laminated chart. He circled a spot off the coast. Here, near Dead Man's Bluff. That's where the beacon came from. Adrian frowned. And no follow-up? Harlan shook his head. We were told to forget it, like it never happened. Adrian scrubbed a hand over his face. Another loose thread tugging at the same web. He turned to Nia. Do you remember hearing any helicopters that night? She shook her head, just engines, vans or trucks, not choppers. Harlan passed Adrian the chart. You going after her? He asked. Yeah, Adrian said. Harlan nodded slowly. Watch your back, then. If they buried reports that fast, they'll bury anyone who digs. On the ride back, Naya traced the circle Harlan had made with her fingertip. Do you think they planned on her surviving? I think they counted on her not, Adrian said. And when she did, they hid her. Why? Naya asked. She's just your wife. Adrian hesitated. She wasn't just a spouse, he said. Lena was building a case that could have taken down 6 shipping executives, money laundering, trafficking, the works. She was weeks from going public. Nia stared. So, this isn't about you. No, Adrian said. It's about silencing her. Nia slumped back. They tried to erase her. Adrian nodded. And they almost did, until you saw. When they reached the estate that evening, the front gates stood slightly ajar. Every instinct in Adrian screamed. Stay here, he told Naya. He stepped out carefully, approaching the house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, lights burned, but a desk drawer lay open, papers strewn across the floor. Rafe arrived minutes later, moving like a shadow. Someone searched your office, he said. No forced entry. Whoever it was had your codes. Adrian's hands curled into fists. So it's someone close. Nia hovered in the hall, arms wrapped around herself. Adrian turned. You okay? She nodded. They're watching us, aren't they? Yes, he answered. Good, she murmured. Means they're scared. For the first time in days, Adrian managed a thin, proud smile. Yeah, he said. It does. That night, Naya stood in the living room staring up at a portrait above the fireplace. Adrian and Lena laughing in bright sunlight. She's alive, Naya said quietly. I can feel it. Adrian looked at the painted smile, his voice low. Then we find her, he said. Whatever it takes. Outside, a car idled on the street. Inside, a figure watched the house through binoculars. She's more of a problem than we expected, the watcher whispered into a phone. The girl remembers too much. Then make sure she doesn't, came the reply. The call ended, the car rolled away, but inside the Cole home the fire burned even hotter. The next morning, Adrian stood in the driveway, sea mist wrapping around him like breath. He unfolded and refolded Harlan's map with the intensity he once reserved for high-stakes deals. This wasn't about profit now. It was about survival, Lena's, and increasingly, Naya's. Inside, Nia ate cereal at the kitchen island, eyes flicking nervously to every window, every creak of the walls. The break-in had rattled her, but it hadn't broken her. If anything, it had sharpened her resolve. She was starting to grasp what it meant to be dragged into something dangerous and vast. Adrian stepped in and handed her a small metal disc on a thin chain. GPS beacon, he said. Wear it, always. Naya turned it over. You really think they'll come again? I don't think, Adrian said. I know. Rafe strode in with a tablet. I traced every offshore entity tied to the men Lena targeted, he said. Shell companies, shadow trusts. Most went dark after her accident, but one's still active. He handed the tablet to Adrian. Ashridge Logistics, registered in Delaware, but cash moves through a supply depot 2 miles from where Naya saw them take Lena. Nia stood. So that's where she is. Or where she was before they shifted her, Adrian answered. Either way, we check it out, tonight. Naya stared out the window, the sky already bruising. What if it's a setup? Then we spring it first, Adrian said. That night, they drove down a service road carved through scrubby coastal hills, headlights off, SUV gliding like a shadow. Rafe drove. Adrian navigated. Naya sat between them, gripping the tablet. The depot appeared out of the dark. Just another corrugated metal warehouse hugging the sea. No sign, no company logo. From a distance, it looked abandoned. Through the long-range binoculars, Adrian saw otherwise. 2 men smoking. Another pacing near the loading bay. Civilian clothes, soldier posture. "We park here," Rafe said, stopping a quarter-mile away. They continued on foot, hugging the shadows. Naya, now in a dark hoodie and gloves, mirrored their movements with surprising grace. Rafe paused behind a rusted container, checking a handheld scanner. "Heat signatures, 3 inside," he whispered. "One lying still, maybe restrained." Adrian's heart hammered. "Lena?" "Can't confirm," Rafe said, "but somebody's not moving." They circled to the rear, where a forgotten vent opened into the building's belly. Rafe pried the grate loose, and they slipped into the narrow duct. The air was stale, tinged with rust and salt. Naya moved ahead easily, her smaller frame perfect for the cramped space. At the end, Rafe fed a fiber optic camera through a slit. "What do you see?" Adrian whispered. Rafe's jaw tightened. "One guy standing, left arm mechanical," he murmured. "That's our man." Nia's breath hitched. "That's him, the one who ordered them around." "Anyone else?" Adrian asked. "Another guard, near a woman, blonde, tied to a chair," Rafe answered. For a moment, Adrian's world narrowed to that single word, woman. His pulse roared in his ears. "We go in, fast and quiet," Rafe said. They eased out of the duct into a dark storage area, moving between crates and beams. On Rafe's signal, they struck. He came up behind the door guard, silenced shots, barely more than a cough. The man dropped. Adrian lunged toward the chair. "Lena!" he choked, tearing tape from her mouth. Her head lolled, then lifted. Her eyes focused on him through bruises and exhaustion. "Adrian!" she rasped. "You're real!" He pulled her into his arms, chains clanking. "I've got you! I'm here!" Behind him, a metallic click cracked the air. Adrian turned slowly. The man with the prosthetic arm stood several yards away, gun leveled, blood trickling from his nose where Rafe had clipped him earlier. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," the man growled. "I know exactly what I'm doing," Adrian replied, positioning himself between Lena and the muzzle. The man sneered. "She had files, names, roots. They paid me to wipe her out. Ocean should have done the job. She just refused to die." Adrian stepped forward. "Drop the gun!" Before he could react, another voice rang out from the shadows. "You first!" Nia emerged from behind a stack of crates. A heavy flashlight, gripped with both hands, held like a weapon. "You again," the man spat. "You're just some street rat." Nia narrowed her eyes. "Then why do I scare you?" In that sliver of distraction, Rafe lunged, knocking the gun away and driving a fist into the man's jaw. The prosthetic arm clanged against the floor. Another blow, and he crumpled, unconscious. Adrian turned, stunned, to Naya. "You could have been killed," he said. She shrugged, chest heaving. "I'm done hiding." They freed Lena from the restraints and guided her back through the vent, Rafe moving ahead, scanning every corner. Outside, a black van waited by the service road. Rafe's people, silent, efficient, had arrived, medics already prepping a stretcher. As they loaded Lena into the van, Adrian climbed in beside her, gripping her hand. "You're safe now," he murmured. Lena coughed, voice thin. Not all of them gone, she whispered. Adrian leaned closer. What? Her eyes burned with urgency. Ashridge, just one limb, others watching, others moving. He nodded. We'll find them, he promised. Beside him, Naya held the sketch she'd brought in her backpack, the penciled Lena staring back. Keep it, Lena said, lips trembling into a faint smile. It's better than any photograph. As the van sped into the night, Adrian looked back at the warehouse, now a dark silhouette on the horizon. This wasn't a final chapter. It was page 1. Days later, Lena lay in a bed in Adrian's private medical wing, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Her face, pale and bruised, bore the weight of months in captivity, yet her grip on Adrian's hand was iron strong. He sat close, chair pulled tight to the bedside, as if distance might swallow her again. Naya hovered in the doorway, suddenly unsure if she belonged in this polished world. Adrian motioned her in. She wants to see you, he said. Naya edged forward. Lena's gaze shifted, a tired but genuine smile creeping across her lips. You're the girl, she whispered. And Naya, Adrian supplied. Lena nodded. Thank you, Naya. You didn't look away. I didn't know what to do, Naya said, voice thick. I was just a kid. You were brave, Lena murmured. That's more than most adults. Adrian watched, throat tight. Not the authorities, not headlines, but this girl had carried Lena's story when everyone else had moved on. Later that morning, Adrian joined Rafe in the study, table buried in documents. Anything solid? Adrian asked. Rafe tapped a tablet. Our friend with the prosthetic goes by Gideon Pike, he said. Ex-private military. Vanished from official records 3 years back. Reappeared, running security for several offshore sites. He swiped to another screen. Ashridge is one. There are 3 more, all registered to shell companies in Luxembourg. And, Adrian pressed. Rafe zoomed into a grainy photo of containers being unloaded at a dock. No company logos, just a mistake black triangle painted over white. Lena flagged that symbol in her notes, Adrian said. She tied it to a trafficking network using shipping routes as cover. She was right, Rafe said, and now they know she's breathing. Adrian exhaled slowly. Then we hit them before they vanish again. Already set up satellite passes, Rafe replied. One site's still active, out in the Gulf. Old weather station turned private facility. No road access, swamp on all sides. We go tonight, Adrian said. Across the house, Naya stood outside Lena's room, eyeing a photograph on the wall. In it, Lena's smile was relaxed, open, untouched by fear. The woman Nia had seen that night at the pier had worn the same face, tightened by terror. Come in, sweetheart, Lena called softly. Nia stepped inside. They'll come again, Lena said quietly. You realize that, right? Nia nodded. They already tried, broke into the house. Lena's hand found Naya's. This isn't just about me anymore, she said. They saw you. That makes you a liability. Nia looked down. Then let them come, she said. I'm tired of being scared. Lena smiled faintly. That's exactly what they're afraid of. Downstairs, Adrian packed a go bag, satellite phone, encrypted drives, pistol, extra magazines. By dusk, their team was airborne, chopper blades thundering toward the Louisiana marshlands. They touched down 2 miles from the target and finished by boat, gliding through twisting channels of dark water. The facility rose from the mist like a concrete ghost, 2 squat towers, 1 lonely dock. No guards visible, which meant they were watching. Inside the boat, Rafe checked his weapon. "No slips tonight," he said. "We're in and out. Grab the servers, disappear." Adrian nodded. In the surveillance van miles away, Naya sat with a comms tech, headset on. "Adrian," she said suddenly, eyes on a grainy monitor. "Northwest corner, movement. Guy armed, talking into an earpiece. Looks like they're rushing files out." Adrian ducked behind a stack of crates. "Then we move now," Rafe barked. They stormed the perimeter, dropping 2 guards before alarms fully blared. Inside, server lights flickered as data streamed away. Minutes later, gunfire erupted, shredding the air. Naya's voice crackled over comms. "Left side. There's a narrow inlet through the reeds. GPS shows an escape channel." They followed her guidance, sprinting low through the marsh as bullets snapped overhead, shots echoing behind them but never quite catching up. Within minutes, they were back at the rendezvous, drenched, lungs burning, crammed into the van. In the surveillance truck miles away, Naya watched their blinking trackers merge on her tablet and finally let herself breathe. They'd made it! At the Cole estate, Adrian set the encrypted drive on his desk. "This ends soon," he said. Lena, standing behind him, shook her head. "No," she murmured. "This is where it truly starts." Beside them, Naya whispered, "Then let's burn their whole system down." At 3:14 a.m., the drive finished decrypting, spilling its secrets across the secure room's massive wall screen. Adrian, Lena, and Rafe clustered around the display, eyes fixed on the endless scrolling. Names, wire transfers, blurry surveillance stills of container yards, clandestine meetings, forged passports. Lena leaned on the back of Adrian's chair, breathing shallow but focused, fury sharpening her gaze. "This is it," she whispered. "Everything they tried to bury." She clicked into another directory. "There's more. Look." A spreadsheet appeared. Coordinates, dates, next shipments. Routes hidden as disaster relief or environmental research runs. Every line stamped with the same black triangle symbol. Adrian straightened, stomach twisting. How many lives moved through this? "Hundreds," Rafe said, jaw tight. "Could be thousands." Nia slipped into the room, balancing a steaming mug of tea for Lena. Her hoodie sleeves were pushed up, revealing pen marks where she'd been jotting notes on her arms. "I found something," she said. "One of these names, Leona Byrne. She disappeared last year, investigating corruption in Honduras." Lena froze mid-sip. "I remember her," Lena said slowly. "She called me once, said she was sitting on dynamite. Then she went dark." Adrian shot Rafe a look. "Any trace?" "File says she was spotted near an offshore station outside Miami 6 months ago," Rafe replied. Adrian turned to Naya. "You want in?" Nia didn't hesitate. "I need to," she said. That afternoon, Adrian and Nia flew to Miami under fake names. Lena stayed behind under heavy security, still healing. Adrian and Nia, Cold and Spark, as Rafe jokingly nicknamed them, moved fast. The oceanic research installation they targeted, reached by rented catamaran, looked nothing like science. Rusted towers, masked guards, no instruments. They anchored half a mile out and slid into the dark water, swimming under the cover of waves. Naya moved like she'd been born in the current. Lean, quick, silent. Inside, the station's corridors buzzed with harsh fluorescent light and the distant clatter of metal. Adrian's heartbeat drummed in his ears. Naya used an access card she'd lifted during the Gulf raid. The door reader chirped, "Green." In the central chamber, they found what they barely dared to hope existed: a cramped holding cage. 8 people crammed behind steel bars. One woman stepped forward as Nia unlatched the gate, eyes blazing despite exhaustion. "Leona Byrne?" Adrian asked. She nodded, voice rough. "Took you long enough." Nia hooked an arm around her, helping her down the corridor while Adrian and Rafe covered the rear. Alarms shrieked to life, red lights strobing. "Move!" Rafe barked. They plunged into an access tunnel sloping toward the lower deck. Gunfire rang out behind them, bullets sparking off steel. Nia clung to Leona, guiding her around corners like she'd memorized the maze. At the dock, their escape boat waited, engine already coughing low. As they jumped aboard, Rafe tossed a small black device onto the platform. "Gift," he muttered. The blast ripped through the east wing, a rolling roar that lit the water with burning metal. Flames clawed at the night. "No more hiding," Nia breathed. At a safe house hours later, Leona sat at a cheap wooden table, drinking clean water like it was champagne, hands still trembling. "You really want to burn them to the ground," she rasped, studying Adrian. "We've already lit the match," he answered. Leona slid a flash drive across the table. "Then use this. Everything I collected before they took me. Names, routes, codes, put it where they can't bury it." Nia frowned. "Why didn't you share it before?" she asked. "I didn't trust anyone," Leona said. "But your kid here," she nodded at Nia. "She looked at me like I still counted. Lena did too." Adrian tucked the drive into a secure pouch. "You'll stay here. We'll keep you safe." "No," Leona said. "I'm done hiding. I want my face on every screen. I want them to see who survived." Adrian held her gaze, then nodded. "We'll make sure they hear you." The next morning, the story detonated. Leona Byrne, journalist missing for over a year, appeared live, raw, and unfiltered. She named executives, contractors, politicians. She described cages, bribes, vanished witnesses. Her testimony slammed across the country like a shockwave. Protests erupted. Tip lines flooded. Agencies were forced to respond. At the Cole estate, Adrian watched silently from the media room. Lena slid onto the couch beside him, fingers brushing his knuckles. "You did it," she whispered. "We did," he corrected. Nia leaned around the doorway. There's something you should see." Adrian stepped onto the front terrace. Across the quiet road, a black sedan idled. No plates. A man in a dark suit sat behind the tinted glass, staring straight at the house. Rafe appeared at Adrian's shoulder. "They're getting desperate," he said. Adrian nodded once. "Good. Desperate people make mistakes." That night, he and Nia sat in the study, fire low. "You don't have to keep doing this," he told her. Nia met his eyes, unflinching. "Yeah, I do." Adrian's mouth crooked. "Then we fight side by side." Deep in the trees beyond the estate, a hidden relay tower flickered online, sending out a quiet pulse. The final storm was gathering. This time, the entire world was watching. 3 days after Leona's interview, everything felt different. News anchors dissected every second of her story. Her scars became national symbols. Names once protected by wealth now crawled across chyrons with accusations attached. Some executives vanished, others resigned. A few were hauled away in handcuffs. Most, though, stayed untouched, for now. At the Cole estate, the silence that followed wasn't relief. It was pressure, waiting to break. Adrian stood in the operations room with Rafe. They reviewed a dossier an anonymous Homeland Security contact had just dropped. It confirmed their worst suspicion. The Black Triangle Network had burrowed into agencies that were supposed to defend people like Lena and Leona. Investigations could be sabotaged from inside. Rafe pointed at a diagram. There, central node, records archive outside Phoenix. Adrian studied the map. We hit that. The whole web shudders. Yeah, Rafe said, but it's built like a vault on top of a bunker. Lena entered, moving steadier than she had in weeks. Her voice carried steel. Then we don't creep in, she said. We flood it. Nia looked up from her sketchbook. What does that mean? She asked. Adrian turned toward her. It means we don't hide this time. We don't just steal. We broadcast, live, loud, with proof. That night, Nia and Lena worked side by side, connecting files, matching invoices, tracing hidden transfers. Revenge was slowly becoming something larger, a blueprint for dismantling an empire. Near dawn, Rafe briefed the assembled team in the underground room. Tomorrow, 600, he said. We infiltrate, plant transmitters, and flip the live feed. No filters, no delay. Every screen they own becomes a mirror. Adrian faced Nia. You're not going, he said. She bristled. I have to. No, he insisted. You're our failsafe. If we don't come back, you push everything out. You're the last line. She hated it, but she understood. By sunrise, the strike team was airborne. A private jet deposited them 3 miles from the target. Armored SUVs took them the rest of the way across shimmering Arizona sand. From a rocky overlook, they saw it. A low concrete structure pressed against the desert ridge, nondescript and heavily surveilled. Perfect place to hide monsters. Adrian checked his earpiece. Everyone ready? Rafe's voice crackled back. In position. They slipped in through a service duct, dropped 2 guards in a quiet corridor lined with temperature-controlled vaults. They bypassed sensors and retinal scanners Rafe had already spoofed. At the complex's core, they found it. A sprawling server farm, blinking like a mechanical constellation. The heartbeat of the syndicate. Adrian attached the primary transmitter. Lena appeared via encrypted link on a monitor, fingers flying as she cued the broadcast. Then a voice drifted from the shadows. Impressive work, it said smoothly. A man stepped into view. Tall, silver hair, neatly combed. Expression almost amused. No body armor, just a charcoal suit. I wondered when you'd reach the center. Adrian moved to shield the others. Name, he demanded. Call me Hale, the man replied. I used to run intelligence on 4 continents. Now I manage risk. Lena's voice came sharp through Adrian's earpiece. He's in our original files. Hale Whitcomb, former agency strategist turned private architect of chaos, disappeared 5 years ago. Hale smiled faintly. Didn't disappear, just stopped answering to anyone else. Rafe raised his weapon. Step aside, Rafe ordered. Hale didn't flinch. Do you honestly think flipping some data switch changes the world? He asked. Systems don't fall because of information. They fall when people stop believing in them, and nobody believes in justice anymore. Adrian took a slow step forward. Then we give them a reason to. He thumbed the transmitter. Every monitor in the room flickered, then burst into a cascade of live feeds, victims' testimonies, contracts, ledgers, routing diagrams. Beyond the facility, phones buzzed, televisions cut to black, and then filled with evidence. Laptops froze mid-email, replaced by the faces of people the network had tried to erase. Hale's smirk thinned. You'll be hunted, he said quietly. Good, Adrian replied. We'll make the chase worth it. Sirens wailed through the building. Boots pounded in nearby halls. Hale turned and vanished into a side corridor before they could stop him. Rafe signaled retreat. They slipped into the emergency tunnel and ran for the ridge. Helicopters waited beyond the scrub, blades already spinning. At the Cole estate, Nia watched the hijacked broadcast unfold on every channel, every app. Tears streaked her cheeks, not from fear, but release. "They did it," she whispered. "They finally showed the truth." That night, when the house calmed, Adrian, Lena, and Nia sat by the fireplace. For a rare moment, the room felt almost peaceful. "People are terrified right now," Nia said quietly. Adrian nodded. "Good. But fear fades fast. We'll have to keep pushing." Lena squeezed Nia's hand. "This time, we're not pushing alone." Outside, crowds already filled city centers, signs raised, names chanted into the dark. Justice, long asleep, was stirring. In the distance, from a black SUV on a side street, Hale watched a protest march flicker across his dash screen, his face unreadable. "Think they've won?" his driver asked. Hale exhaled slowly. "No," he said. "They've just lit a bigger fire." At the Cole home, that fire felt like hope. For the first time in a long while, no one in that house felt invisible. The days that followed were madness wrapped in revelation. Major outlets scrambled to verify the data torrent. Reports detailed smuggling corridors, high-ranking officials, private military groups disguising human trafficking as logistics and research work. Streets from Boston to San Francisco pulsed with protest. Some leaders stepped down. One senator was arrested, stepping off a private jet in Zurich. Inside the Cole estate, a heavier quiet settled. It wasn't fear, it was the weight of what came next. Adrian stood in the war room, arms folded, scanning rolling updates. Lena sat at a side desk, headset on, talking to a human rights attorney. They were assembling a global civil case. Nia worked beside her, laptop open, eyes flicking between satellite feeds and anonymous messages from whistleblowers. "Found something," Nia said suddenly, pointing at a buried memo. "Directive 8-1, Emergency Removal Protocol." Adrian walked over. "Removal of what?" "Not what," Nia said softly. "Who? Targets, survivors, informants, us." Lena went still. "They planned for this," she said. Rafe stepped in carrying a sealed envelope. "Courier dropped this, no return." Adrian opened it slowly. Inside was a black and white photo of a younger Nia, maybe 13, on a school playground. A red circle was drawn around her. Underneath a typed line, "Correct the error." Nia's face drained of color. "They flagged you early," Adrian said quietly. "From the start." Lena looked between them. "What error?" Nia swallowed. "When I was a kid, I saw something. Men in uniforms loading women into trucks near an old factory by my school. I told the teacher. She told me to drop it." Adrian crumpled the edge of the photo in his fist. "They've been watching you ever since," he said. "And when you saw Lena alive and spoke up, you became the one spark they couldn't smother." "I don't want to run," Nia whispered. "You won't," Lena said, resting a steady hand on her arm. "We stand." The room shifted. From pure strategy to survival. They weren't just exposing a network anymore. They were daring it to strike back. That night, Adrian met with Rafe and Lena in the underground ops room. The screen showed threads from dark forums, bounty chatter, intercepted warnings of cleanup operations targeting the Cole estate. "They'll hit here," Rafe said. "Stage it as a robbery gone sideways, gas leak, something plausible. If we stay, we're targets." Adrian shook his head. "If we disappear, they win the narrative. We hold," he said. "Call Leona. Tell her to prepare a second evidence dump. If we fall, everything goes public again. By the next day, the estate had transformed into a fortress. Drones patrolled the grounds. Camera feeds stitched into a panoramic grid. Nia trained daily with Rafe, how to move, how to shoot, how to vanish in plain sight. She never complained. "You were built for this," Rafe said one evening as she reassembled her sidearm. "I was built to be unseen," she replied. "Now I see them." That night, beneath a crescent moon, an alarm tripped. Adrian sprinted to the command hub. On the screen, 3 silhouettes in tactical black crept toward the east wall. "They're here," he said. Rafe strapped on his vest. "We hold long enough to send the last package." Nia appeared in the doorway, jaw set. "I'm staying." Adrian studied her, then nodded once. "You know your role." The strike came like a tide. 3 intruders became 6, then 10, silent, coordinated, lethal. But the estate fought back with automated defenses, choke points, drones. Rafe's team funneled attackers into traps, disabling 2, dragging 1 inside alive. A blast tore through part of the west wing, blowing out glass and filling corridors with smoke. Lena pulled Nia into a reinforced hallway, pressing a hard drive into her hands. "If we go down, you send this," she said. "I'm not letting you go down," Nia snapped. In the command room, Adrian's shoulder burned from a grazing shot. Rafe stood at the door, breathing hard, weapon trained on the captured man, now unmasked, a zealot, eyes bright with fanaticism. He smiled through split lips. "You think this ends with your house?" he taunted. Adrian limped over, blood running down his sleeve. "No," he said, "it ends with everyone seeing you." The man's smile faltered. "What did you do?" he demanded. "You talked," Adrian said. "We recorded." Lena stepped in, face streaked with soot. "And now the world gets your confession." Within minutes, Nia and Rafe triggered the final dump. Interrogation clips, internal directives, orders signed with Hale's name, financing ledgers, political donors. Every major outlet received it simultaneously, no takebacks. Outside, sirens converged. Local police, federal units, emergency responders Rafe had alerted through secure channels. The attackers scattered. Some were taken down, others melted into the dark. Inside the battered estate, those who remained standing gathered among shattered glass and lingering smoke. Adrian, bloodied but upright. Lena, coughing but steady. Nia, clutching the drive like a promise. They hadn't just survived. They'd made history bleed in real time. Far away, in a dim corporate boardroom, Hale watched clips of his network unraveling. He didn't shout, didn't pace. He simply smiled, a small strange curve of the mouth. The war was far from over, but for the first time it wasn't silent. The Cole property bore the marks of battle. Charred walls, shattered windows, a whole section of the west wing scorched. Yet the flag at the gate still flew, torn but stubborn. The world had seen the assault. They'd heard the truth screamed across networks. Now, something more volatile brewed. Retaliation. 3 days later, Adrian sat beneath a courthouse in D.C. In a sealed briefing room, federal agents reviewed the evidence. It had sparked emergency hearings, special task forces, raids. A dozen mid- and high-level players were already in custody. Hale, however, was not among them. "He's vanished," said Agent Carter, a lean man with deep-set eyes. "We froze 7 of his accounts. No movement. He ghosted." "He's not hiding," Adrian said, staring at Hale's photo on the digital board. "He's regrouping." Carter folded his arms. "Your estate became a war zone. Public opinion's with you, But this guy thinks in years, not days. He'll wait for outrage to cool, then strike. Adrian's jaw flexed. Then we make sure outrage doesn't cool. Back at the estate, Lena sat in a recovery room with Naya. Smoke inhalation and bruises had slowed Nia's body, but not her fire. She stared out the window, knees pulled up, silent. "You haven't said much," Lena observed gently. "I keep wondering," Naya murmured, "what if I'd stayed quiet that first day? All of this," she whispered, "all those people would still be ghosts." "You gave them a voice," Lena said. Naya shook her head. "No, I gave them a chance to be seen." That evening, Adrian returned with new orders. "We've been called to testify," he said. "Congress wants us on record. You, me, NIA, public." Lena lifted a brow. "You're not joking." "They need faces," Adrian said. "Documents alone aren't enough anymore. They want to show survivors, whistleblowers, the girl who remembered." Nia straightened. "I'll go," she said. Adrian blinked. "You're sure?" She nodded. "They used my silence once, never again." The days before the hearing were a blur. Adrian met with lawyers and security teams. Lena coordinated with trusted journalists to guarantee a global stream. Naya trained with media coaches, not to script her words, but to keep her voice steady when the cameras turned. One night in the study, Adrian said, "You've already faced worse than that room." Naya exhaled. "I'm not afraid of them," she admitted. "I'm afraid of what happens afterward." "The world shifts slow," Adrian said, "but it doesn't shift at all without people like you." The hearing day arrived. Marble corridors buzzed with reporters and demonstrators. Nia walked between Adrian and Lena, her steps light but sure. Flashbulbs flared when they entered the chamber. Inside, senators waited behind long, polished desks. Cameras beamed the scene to millions. Lena went first, measured, unshakable, laying out how the network tried to murder her and then erase her existence. Adrian followed, mapping the digital trail and the violence that followed every leak. Then Anya took the chair, a small cushion placed behind her. "Please state your name for the record," the chairman said. "NIA Lillian Owens," she replied. "How old are you, Miss Owens?" 16. A pause. "What would you like to tell us?" Nia looked straight into the main camera. "When I was 11, I watched men drag a woman out of the ocean and shove her into a van," she said. "She screamed. One of them had a fake arm that clicked when he moved. I told a teacher." Her voice did not shake. "Nobody listened. Not until I met Mr. Cole. Then I saw what hiding the truth does. It erases people." The room went quiet. A senator leaned forward. "Why speak now?" "Because I'm done being invisible," Nia said simply. Outside, crowds watching on big screens erupted in cheers. Social feeds exploded. A new tag surged, "I see you all." By evening, the committee announced an emergency mandate. Every name in the files would be investigated under independent oversight. A multi-agency task force was formed to dismantle Black Triangle operations worldwide. For the first time, Black Triangle entered the official congressional record as a synonym for organized exploitation. Elsewhere, in a seaside compound, Hale watched Nia's testimony projected wall-sized. He swirled amber liquid in a glass. "She's dangerous," a woman beside him said. "No," Hale answered, almost amused. "She's essential." "Then why aren't we stopping her?" the woman asked. "Because," Hale replied, rising, "we're changing tactics." Back at the Cole estate, the family, because that's what they were now, gathered in weary celebration. Reporters clustered at the gate. Security remained tight, but inside they ate, laughed, exhaled. "You did this," Adrian told Naya as she cradled hot cocoa. "We did," she mumbled, fighting sleep. Later, as Adrian stared out at the distant hills, unease gnawed at him. This didn't feel like an ending. It felt like an intermission. 2 weeks crawled by. Headlines shifted. New scandals rose. Talk shows moved on. Naya's testimony still echoed, but the urgency dulled. Justice, he realized, had a short attention span. Not for Adrian! He stood alone in the estate observatory, listening to the quiet desert night, stars scattered like shards. Below, perimeter lights glowed steadily, a reminder their peace was rented, not owned. Rafe slipped in. "It's starting again," he said. Adrian didn't turn. "Where?" "South Africa. Clinic bombing. Same symbol carved into the wall." Adrian inhaled slowly. "Hale's shifting strategy," Rafe said. "He's not just shielding the network anymore, he's rebuilding it in the open." Downstairs, Naya sat at the long oak table, papers and screens spread out. She wasn't just a girl with a sketch pad now. She'd become something sharper. An analyst piecing together flight plans and manifests. Elena set a warm hand on her shoulder. "You need rest," she murmured. "I need to stay ahead," Naya said, eyes glued to the data. "Lena," Adrian's voice called from the hall. "Briefing." In the operations room, they gathered. Rafe, Lena, Naya, and 2 new allies. Agent Mariah Green from the FBI's trafficking unit, and Julian Price, a defector from Hale's digital ops. Julian pulled up a global map speckled with red dots. One blinked furiously in the North Atlantic. "This node's different," he said. "Old NATO listening post off Iceland. Supposedly decommissioned. In the last day, I've tracked 7 high-level relays bouncing through it." Rafe whistled low. "That's command-grade chatter. We think Hale's running his command hub from there," Julian continued. "Remote, frozen, off most radar, perfect reset point." Lena stepped closer. "Then that's where we finish it." Adrian turned to Naya. "You're not going this time." Nia frowned. "Why not?" "You're the symbol now," Lena said gently. "If anything happens to you, this movement splinters. You gave people a voice," Adrian added. "Now you have to keep it loud. Rally them, remind them why this matters. If we fail, they'll need someone to believe in anyway." Naya swallowed, then nodded. "Then you come back," she said. 2 nights later, a private jet cut through icy skies toward northern Iceland. Adrian, Lena, Rafe, Julian, and a tactical unit disembarked onto an abandoned airstrip, snow whipping sideways. They moved wordlessly, snowshoes crunching over frozen ground. The facility emerged from the mist like a buried beast, a steel wedge wedged into a cliffside, lights dark, antennas skeletal against the sky. Julian led them to a maintenance hatch he'd mapped. Inside, cramped corridors were crusted with frost and old cables. The deeper they went, the warmer the air hummed. Servers thrummed underfoot. In the main command chamber, they found a digital nerve center. Massive screens showing live operations, drone feeds, bank flows, encrypted chats. Same beast, new skin. Hale stood waiting at the middle. He was alone, hands empty. Adrian raised his pistol. "Don't move." "Relax," Hale said calmly. "I'm unarmed. Besides, haven't you already won?" Lena's gaze narrowed. "Where are the rest?" Hale gestured toward the screens. "Everywhere and nowhere. I don't require bodies anymore, just code." Julian slid to a console. "I can shut this down," he muttered. "You can't," Hale replied. "It's decentralized. Kill one node, another spawns. Cut one head, two more grow, Rafe snorted softly. Quoting Hydra myths now? Quoting survival, Hale said. Adrian stepped closer. You bought and sold human beings. You branded them, buried them, called it logistics. Hale shrugged faintly. I did what governments contract out every day. Julian's fingers flew. He's not bluffing, he said. The network replicates in real time. Lena stared at Hale. Then why let us find you? Because I'm tired, he said, and I wanted a front row seat to what hope looks like when it thinks it's winning. A metallic clatter sounded behind them. One of their agents dropped. A tranquilizer dart stuck from his neck. Another operative went down. Ambush! Rafe shouted, pivoting toward the entrance and firing. Masked figures surged in, fast and surgical. They weren't generic soldiers. They were elite operatives, Hale's final contingency. Adrian yanked Lena behind a console. Grab the drives! He shouted. Rafe's shots dropped two attackers. Julian ducked beneath the main terminal, ripping out core drives and shoving them into his coat. Got the spine, he yelled. Move, Adrian ordered. They bolted back through the maintenance shaft, gunfire ricocheting off metal. Hale stayed behind, untouched, watching screens flicker. Outside, snowmobiles waited, engines growling. They tore into the blizzard, bleeding but alive, carrying Hale's secrets. Hours later, in a safe house far from the ice, Lena scrolled through decrypted files. New client lists, new shell companies, new politicians. We finally cornered him, she said. Adrian sagged into a chair. We exposed him, he corrected. Now the world decides what to do. Across the ocean, Nia faced a different kind of battlefield, a youth summit stage. Her voice was steady over the microphone. You've all seen what's been uncovered, she said. Now it's on you. Silence is a luxury we can't afford anymore. Her words fell like snow and landed like sparks. Somewhere in the dark, watching a stream on a small screen, Hale closed his eyes. Let's see, he murmured, what they do with the light. The standing ovation came late, after a long, charged silence. Nia stood at the center of the United Global Youth Forum in Chicago, last speaker of the day. Her tone wasn't loud, just unshakable. The crowd leaned forward, pulled not by celebrity, but conviction. When I was 11, she repeated, I saw something horrific. I told the truth. Nobody listened. She swept the room with her gaze. Thousands of students, activists, reporters, veterans, survivors. The second time I spoke, she said, they couldn't ignore it. One pair of hands began clapping, then another. Soon the hall thundered with applause, some cheering, some crying. The noise wasn't for her alone. It was for the feeling of something waking up. Back at the Cole estate, Adrian stood in the garden with Lena. The rose bushes she'd planted before the storm were blooming again, stubborn, bright. Nia's speech played on a small radio by their table. She's not the kid we first met, Lena said softly. Adrian smiled. No, he said. She's who she always was. We just finally noticed. Inside, Rafe and Julian worked on the last step, releasing every remaining file Hale had ever touched into a secure, open archive controlled by international coalitions, vetted journalists, and watchdog groups. Metadata's scrubbed, Julian said. If they try rebuilding, they'll be chasing phantoms. Rafe actually smiled. Then, our part's done, he said. Beyond the glow of their hope, shadows lingered. Hale had vanished once more. No hits, no chatter, just theories. Some said he was dead. Others believed he'd changed his face, his identity, maybe even his allegiance. Adrian doubted all of them. Hale wasn't hiding. He was waiting. But for once, that didn't crush him, because the story wasn't really about Hale anymore. It wasn't even about Adrian, Lena, or Rafe. It was about the girl who refused to fade. That evening, Naya came home, not to microphones but to arms. Lena's fierce hug, Rafe's quiet nod, Adrian's hand on her shoulder. Family, bound not by blood but by battle. "I missed you," Naya said, dropping her bag. "We never left," Lena whispered. After dinner, they curled around the fireplace while the desert wind rattled the windows. Naya sat cross-legged on the rug, staring into the flames. "You think this ever really ends?" she asked. "No," Adrian answered honestly. "But that's not the point. The point," Lena added, sipping her tea, "is making sure the world never goes quiet about it again." Nia nodded. She understood. Later, as the house slept, Adrian wandered the hallways. He paused outside the study, looking at the framed sketch on the wall. Naya's drawing of a girl watching flames, face lit by resolve, not terror. He flicked off the light, letting moonlight wash the floor. Somewhere far away, in a cold, anonymous room, Hale stared into a mirror. No longer a powerful ghost, just an aging man with the weight of his choices pressing against his ribs. He opened a journal. On the first page, he'd written only, "Every movement needs a villain." He closed it. In Washington, hearings continued. Survivors testified. Companies folded. Nations formed a coalition to pursue transnational trafficking. New laws took shape. Imperfect, messy, but real progress. On a crisp autumn morning in Ohio, a class of fifth graders watched a short documentary about NIA as part of a civil rights lesson. A girl in the back, curls framing her face, raised her hand. "But she was just a kid," she said. "How'd she do all that?" The teacher smiled, because she didn't believe she was too small to matter. Another spark caught. Back in Arizona, Naya stood beneath the night sky, alone but not lonely. She studied the stubborn stars. "We're still here," she whispered, "and we're not done." Behind her, the patio door opened. Adrian stepped out, hands in his coat pockets. "Heavy thoughts?" he asked. "Honest ones," she said. They stood together in the quiet. "Think they'll remember us?" she asked. "They'll remember what we stood for," Adrian said. And that, she knew, was enough. The truth often arrives through the people society ignores. If you've lived past 65, you've seen how the world can decide whose voice counts. You've watched it happen in boardrooms, courtrooms, hospitals, and even church basements, where the loudest person is treated like the wisest, and the quietest person is treated like background noise. That's what makes Naya's entrance in the memorial garden so striking. A drenched kid in a soaked hoodie walks into a circle of polished mourners and says the unthinkable. "Your wife isn't dead." Most people would have waved her away. Some did. An aide practically tried to escort grief out of the rain, like it was a public relations inconvenience. But Nia didn't bring gossip. She brought details: a scar on the left forearm, short, light blonde hair after chemo, a necklace with a tiny heart stamped with L and A, the kind of private detail you don't find on any news clip or obituary. And then she adds the line that turns a man's blood cold. A tall white man with a plastic-looking prosthetic arm gave the orders. Older folks know this truth. The world misses important things because it doesn't look at the right people. Nia had been invisible. Black, young, sleeping behind fences and dumpsters. Yet she was the only one who saw everything. She tried to tell a cop and got laughed at. That's not just a sad moment, it's a warning. Because if the people we ignore are the ones standing closest to the truth, then every time we dismiss them, we're not just being unkind, we're choosing blindness. Grief can freeze you, but love has to move. Adrian Cole is powerful, rich, and controlled. Yet grief still pins him like a weight on the chest. Many of you know that kind of grief. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, but the quiet, daily kind that turns the world into routines. Get up, work, eat, sleep, repeat, and try not to fall into the hole again. Adrian had done what so many do after loss. He built a life sturdy enough to stand on top of the pain. Then a kid shows up with a handkerchief stitched with Lena's name, and the floor cracks. Here's the lesson. Love isn't proven by what you feel. It's proven by what you're willing to do when doing something could wreck your comfort. Adrian doesn't just cry and hope. He pivots. He calls Rafe. He orders eyes on Pier 14 and the old cannery. He brings Nia into safety, feeds her, listens to her, and, this matters, he respects her. That's not charity, that's recognition. And when they find the room, bleach stink in the air, restraints on a cot, a scratched LC on concrete, Adrian's grief becomes something else, a compass. The letters aren't just proof. Lena lived, they're proof she expected someone to come. That's a brutal thought for anyone who's ever sat beside a hospital bed or signed papers you didn't want to sign, because it asks the question older hearts understand. What if you stop searching too soon? What if the thing you called acceptance was just exhaustion? But the story doesn't romanticize it. Adrian's hope doesn't make him safe. It makes him a target. Break-ins, surveillance, threats. The world doesn't reward love, it tests it. Yet he keeps moving, because love, real love, doesn't just mourn, it acts. Evil counts on silence, but systems break when people speak together. By the time Lena is rescued, this is no longer a private tragedy. It's a machine. Shipping routes, shell companies, private security, compromised officials, and a symbol stamped everywhere like a brand, the Black Triangle. And older Americans have seen versions of this before, even if the names were different. You've watched scandals get buried, witnesses get discredited, and headlines move on because attention is the shortest leash in the modern world. That's why the turning point isn't just a rescue. It's the decision to expose the whole system in daylight. The evidence dumps, the live broadcast, the testimony. This is how you force a world that forgets to remember. Nia's story becomes more than a dramatic detail. It becomes a mirror held up to society. She's 16, sitting at a congressional table with a cushion behind her, and she says what older generations know is dangerous. Nobody listened until now. I'm done being invisible. And that's the lesson that lands hardest. No single hero breaks a network like this. It takes Lena's files, Rafe's muscle, Julian's digital skill, Leona's public voice, and Nia's refusal to disappear. The machine was built on secrecy. It starts to crack when survivors stand up, when records go public, when communities keep the story alive long after the first wave of outrage fades. The legacy isn't comfort, it's courage. If you're 65 or older, you've earned the right to ask, what's the point of fighting at my age? This story answers plainly. Because the world still needs people who won't look away. Because your grandkids are watching what adults do when the truth is inconvenient. Because evil doesn't require genius, it requires silence and fatigue. And the most American thing in this whole tale isn't the wealth or the tech or the helicopters. It's the stubborn decision to stand up anyway and say, "We see you. We remember. We're not done." If someone as overlooked as Nia could be the one person who held on to the truth when everyone else, police, media, neighbors, shrugged and moved on. What does that say about the stories we might be missing in our own towns, our own families, even our own past? And if you were Adrian, would you risk your reputation, your safety, and your comfort to chase one fragile thread of hope? Or would you protect your heart by calling it impossible? And while you're thinking, will you hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what part of this story hit you the hardest? Would you like me to help you weave this story into a short script, or perhaps generate an image of the memorial garden where Nia first approached Adrian?